Brian Ortego versus the Korean Zombie preview prediction. Knuckleheads, welcome to the Fighters Rep, where we give you free fights, interviews in the fight game, and fight commentary from the mind of a promoter/attorney. You know, the UFC is constantly feeding us, especially during this entire lockdown, with more of these delectable 50-50 fights, doing something that I wish boxing would do. Although we do have a massive fight this Saturday between Teofimo and Lomachenko. But I digress. Doing something that boxing should do more often. Giving us another 50-50 fight. And this one is a number one contender fight according to Dana White. And this is a juicy one, knuckleheads. You've got the Korean Zombie taking on Brian Ortega. And there's a backstory here. There's some beef where, you know, this dude on the Korean Zombie side, I believe he's a rapper of some sort, said something that rubbed Brian Ortega the wrong way. Brian Ortega pulled up on him as the Korean Zombie, I believe, was in the restroom and smacked him or did something like that. So, I mean, there's beef between the Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. This is going to be an interesting one, man. I don't think these guys like each other. They've been talking about knocking each other out. Korean Zombie, I know, wants that get back for his homie that got slapped up by Brian Ortega when Brian pulled up on him. And, you know, besides that, I mean, these two are excellent fighters, right? Very good fighters. I mean, the only time Brian Ortega has ever lost was against Max Holloway. And if you ask me, Max Holloway should be the current champ, not Volkanovski. I thought Holloway defeated him quite handily, in fact, in their rematch. And it looks like the winner of this fight is going to get Volkanovski. So, I mean, this is a very juicy fight, high stakes, lot of beef, and two very high-level guys. I think the biggest question that we have to ask ourselves as fight fans prior to coming into this fight is, where is Brian Ortega at this juncture? The last time we saw Brian Ortega, he took a vicious beating at the hands of Max Holloway. This was back in December of 2018. So we're closing in on 2 years since the last time he fought. And he's coming off of a loss. Whereas if you look at the Korean Zombie's record, you know, since 2018, he's fought 3 times. He lost in that incredible fight against Yair Rodriguez. I think he would have probably won that fight had Yair not landed that marvelous elbow in the last second. But then he won 2 performance of the night bonuses. The first against Renato Moicano, a very good fighter, where he TKO'd him. The second against the legend, Frankie Edgar, who he also TKO'd in Busan, South Korea, back on December 21st, 2019. So the Korean Zombie, knuckleheads, much more active, very dangerous on the feet, I'd like to point out. Very dangerous on the feet, and that is where Max Holloway was able to beat Brian Ortega. I do believe the Korean Zombie is decent on the ground. He's got a brown belt in BJJ, but he is no first-degree black belt under the Gracies the way Brian Ortega is. I think Brian Ortega has the advantage on the ground. I think he'd have to take this fight to the ground if he wants to win this fight. His striking is decent, but I don't think he's got the timing and the skills of a Korean Zombie. And I see this fight being an incredibly close, hard-fought fight. I see this fight being an incredibly close, hard-fought fight. I think Korean Zombie understands that he's got a 3-inch reach advantage and a slight height advantage. I think the Korean Zombie takes advantage of that. And I think this fight is a 50-50 fight that goes one of 2 ways. Either the Korean Zombie gets snagged and gets choked out by Brian Ortega, or the Korean Zombie just beats Ortega up on the feet. Those are one of 2 things that can happen. considering the amount of time Brian Ortega has been outside of the octagon, I don't like this fight for Brian Ortega. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. And give you guys my prediction. I feel like Brian Ortega is a special kid. He still hasn't reached his 30s. And I feel like the Korean Zombie, while he definitely has a chance to win this fight, again, 50-50 chance, I feel like the Korean Zombie has gotten to a high level before and choked. Perhaps it's a mental block, perhaps it's a talent block. I think he gets beat against Brian Ortega. I may eat my words come Saturday night, but I think Ortega snags him at some point, maybe chokes him out. There's also the possibility of Ortega getting knocked out or just getting beat up in a decision. But I'm going to have to go with the San Pedro boy, represent for Southern California, represent for the South Bay. And I got to go with Brian Ortega. I think at some point within a 5-round fight, even if he's losing on the feet, Ortega's not the kind of guy to give up. I think and I hope after his experience with Max Holloway, he'll know, let's take this fight to the ground or let's do some grappling where I am prolific and let me wrap this hand around the Korean Zombie's neck and get that W. Knuckleheads, that's my prediction. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, the bell notification icon next to it. Join Knucklehead Nation. Tell me who you think wins this fight and how. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Also, get your Fighters Rep gear in the link below. By doing so, you help me build this channel and the only kickboxing promotion that matters. It's yours, it's mine, and it's for the fighters. Knuckleheads, much appreciated. We'll talk soon.